Hello everyone. Today's episode is going to be a bit of an experimental one. A couple of things I decided to do on the fly, without testing them first, so I will end up redoing them a couple times, especially a particularly bothersome pipe at the end. Also, most of the episode will have an impending disaster looming over it, where things will start go downhill rapidly, health and happiness will plummet to depths never before seen in the history of the Republic. I will tell you right now, that in the end, we will climb out of that scary spiral of doom, but not before a couple hundred people either die due to health reasons, or outright leave the country because things are going badly. So, let's not delay any longer and rip it off like a band-aid. I'll do the usual ritual of making sure the rail tracks are set up properly, so we end up building what needs to be built, and not bothering with pieces that are unnecessary right now. Basically, I want to finish up the main line in its entirety, and only bother with the branches after. Next, I want to lengthen the oil drop-off branch, because there is no room left for any additional trains to queue in. I very much doubt it's ever going to be a high traffic area. The power plant doesn't seem to consume too much oil even when it's working at 100%, but it doesn't hurt to be prepared. As you've seen, I also deleted the branch leading up to the clothing warehouse. I decided to merge the two branches together, and make them use the same junction. This should be more than enough to house one full-length train. I'll also need to include the clothing branch, so let's take care of that part of the intersection. Yeah, that should work okay. I will also include a crossing here, at the rail construction office. Not really necessary, but I'd like to use mixed signals for each lane, instead of making them one-way tracks. I think it would work if one was an exit and the other the entrance, but for this particular case, I decided to keep both lines two-way. But that's for later, when we finally get around to putting down signals. Next, I decided to stop selling food for a little bit. I want to move local distribution in the town to the warehouse, and I'd prefer to have a bit of a stockpile waiting for that eventuality. Speaking of the warehouse, I'll adjust the space allocation to the same that we use in the stores. 70% food, and 15% for both clothes and electronics. I wish the devs would add a text input field to fine-tune these percentage numbers, and allow us to lock them, so when we adjust something else, certain values would be forced to stay the same. Next, I'll enable line spacing for the quarry lines. That means they will no longer wait to be fully unloaded at the gravel processing plant. This is mostly to avoid seeing too many traffic jam notifications, whenever we don't use gravel and we cannot produce any more, so all of them start to sit idle for a long time. I want to keep all my roads as clean as possible, even dirt ones, but I still want to concentrate on the streets and highways that are used more frequently. So I'll prioritize everything above gravel, but still give mud roads a 10% preference, so we do clean them, but mostly once everything else is already free of snow. We already started to upgrade the roads around the construction yard, and there's no reason to stop now. I will go around, and start doing the driveways of buildings that are already completed. That will keep everything still under construction free to access, and I'll just keep designating more roads as more things are built. Next, I want to place the new heating plant. That's going to be the bane of my existence in this episode. Well, not the heating plant itself, but the pipes connecting it to the heat exchangers in the town. We'll get to it later. I was hoping we could place it closer to the steel mill, so we could use the local bus stop and power, but in the end it ended up going into that small field under the rail crossing, next to the iron mine driveway. We had to move it to make it fit, but that will be the least of our problems. No need to worry about the road right now. We can deal with it when it's time to build the mine. Now, back to what we set out to do in the first place. Yeah, all those roads we're building tied up all the vehicles capable of terrain manipulation. Oh well, we can build it on uneven ground. Now, we just need to wait until it's built. Next, I'll update a couple vehicle routes. First, I'll add 4 more microbuses to the food factory line. We are far from using all the crops we harvest every year, so we can make things a bit faster. I'll also add 2 more trucks to the food distribution line. More production means we can increase the throughput. Since we doubled the number of factories, it also diluted the number of workers that work in each. I think we can add more buses to this line too. Time to upgrade the services in the town. The sports facilities have moments when people have to wait outside to get in, so we definitely need another indoor pool. But first, we need to do the obligatory terrain leveling. In the meantime, more of the construction yard got completed, so let's quickly upgrade the roads that we can. Anyways, I want to continue with the current town street grid, so I'll extend these roads, which we can later connect up to continue with the pattern. So, we wanted to add a sports facility first. Right next to the newest apartment sounds good. Next, the cinema. It might still be okay, but since we are upgrading everything else, we may as well do the culture too. If we mirror it, we can use the intersection created by the new indoor pool for this one as well. We already established that we need a new school. Our childcare capacity should be adequate for now, so no need to build another kindergarten. Our university, however, is severely overloaded. I don't think I'll do anything about it though, we have way more college graduates than we need right now. The numbers started to drop. I'll definitely need to keep an eye on it, but it may very well be that we reach the peak, and we will start to level off after this drop. It was brought to my attention that I could have placed that wreath mural here, but I'll be damned before I move it again. I'll just fill it in with something else. Having a fountain here was also tempting, but I think that one requires a bit of a bigger paved square around it. It could be the centerpiece of a park, but all by itself, it would look a bit lonely. We will go with a red star in the end. Now that the oil drop-off station is finished, we can upgrade more road sections, since nothing else requires construction on this branch. Since all the materials are present at the new shop's construction, I'll max out the number of workers who can walk in from the street, and be done with it. The new shopping center is finished. First, I'll adjust the internal storage to the 70-15-15 split that I settled onto in this playthrough. I will also disable the building by reducing the number of staff to 0, until I know that all 4 consumer products are available. First of those will be meat. I'll do the same as I did with the first shop, which is a single dedicated meat import line, which will wait to be fully unloaded at the shop. Incidentally, you may notice that our health and overall happiness started that nosedive I mentioned at the start. My best guess is that people have a hard time getting into the severely overcrowded first shop, and they cannot buy the food and clothes they require to keep themselves happy and well fed. Without being satiated, their health also plummets, creating a vicious feedback loop. And I suspect that our heating infrastructure being close to its limit doesn't help matters. Anyways, next I want to tell the clothing distribution to start dropping off their cargo at the warehouse first, and only then proceed to the border to sell the rest. It will create a gap in our exports, while the internal stocks fill up, but after that, we will be back to normal. Yes, I know I accidentally placed the customs house directly after the pickup stop. I'll fix it fairly soon. Next, we'll need to distribute the goods locally, and for that, I will use dedicated lines at first. I will eventually move on to using a small distribution house to do it, but I want to start things rolling first. I got a bit suspicious why I don't see any clothes in the warehouse yet. Too bad I got distracted by another building in the construction yard. I was so close to realizing the problem. Incidentally, only the asphalt plant remains. After that, only need to upgrade the rest of the roads, deliver the materials, and the construction yard is officially ready for business. Now, about that town warehouse. Yes, getting warmer. Finally realized my error. I accidentally had the pickup warehouse stop selected when I inserted the customs house into the list again, and it ended up in the middle. That should fix it, and we can look forward to some clothes being dropped off at the town. This is where I first realized that things are getting critically bad with our population. Now that I'm looking at this display more closely, it seems the main culprit is the overloaded heating infrastructure. Satiation is still high, and sports are fairly well maintained. The biggest issue is that people cannot get access to healthcare, which tells me that a lot of people are falling ill. Since it's winter, and pollution is fairly low, I blame the lack of heating. We finally have clothes stored at the warehouse. That issue is taken care of. Instead of moving goods straight to the store, I'll tell the distribution office at the border to start moving stuff to the warehouse instead. We still need to import electronics at the very least. Since it's a product that requires very low throughput, I'll only fill the warehouse's allocated capacity to the default 30%. More than enough to keep things moving. Of course, I'll need to take care of moving it from the warehouse to the shops. I was afraid of this. It was a very low chance occurrence, but if it can happen, it's just a matter of time. No Firehouse can reach this transformer, even from the construction yard. This one is beyond saving at this point, so we will have to rebuild it. If we had finished building the local fire station, I could have bought a helicopter and deal with it. But you know, hindsight and all that. I will of course finish building it now that it's too late, but at least it will prevent it from happening again. There. Ready for building again. Nothing more we can do, so let's not waste any more time on it. Holy moly, that's a long bread line. We need to sort out the second shop as soon as possible. The only thing remaining is food. So first, I'll tell the distribution line to start moving it to the warehouse instead of the original town shop, so we can divide it evenly between the two stores. And that of course means another 2 lines doing just that. And that should be that. But I can tell you now, that's not the end of this story. And the construction yard is finished. Once I'm happy with the readiness of our train network, and I'm confident that it can operate without issues, I'll start moving materials over. I'll cancel the CO assignments of these roads. They will reassign themselves, but they will be lower down the list. I have no idea if that has any impact on priorities, but it makes me feel better. The materials are already present at the transformer. Don't quote me on this, but maybe we don't need to redo the foundations if a building burns down. We have quite a queue in front of the warehouse. I should have expected this to happen. We will need to build a road cargo station to deal with this kind of traffic volumes. I will make the driveway out of asphalt. I know I usually use gravel for that, but I want this building to operate as smoothly as possible. The initial queue seemed to have cleared up a bit, but I don't want to bet on it staying that way forever. See? The queue is back. That cargo station is essential to ensure smooth operation. The firehouse is finished. We only need to supply it with power and fuel, and it will be ready to accept the first helicopter. It won't do anything until that substation is finished, but I'll still tell the distribution house to move fuel to the fire station. At least I would have, if the roads in the construction yard were complete. We will need to wait for them to finish before we can assign it. We will also need to move workers over to the construction yard, because we need them to operate the concrete and asphalt plants, not to mention the local firehouse. Since the roads are not finished yet, I'll only buy the microbuses in advance, and release them once they can reach their destination. Since the town warehouse is not full of clothes, we started to sell the surplus again. At most, we lost a couple months' worth of exports. We will manage. And since the food stocks are also filling up nicely, I'll tell the distribution line to start selling the excess production at the border. Anything they cannot drop off in the town will be exported. Our health is still at scarily low levels. Patients are still lining up outside the hospital. I should have done this way earlier, but I forgot that I lowered the staff numbers when I first built it. In fact, I should have just raised it back to its maximum, and be done with it. I already made a note of it, and will be the first thing I do in the next episode. That seemed to have done the trick. Health started to climb slowly again. We'll be back to normal before we're done with this episode. The food levels in the town shops are a bit too low for my liking. I'll add one more truck to each of the distribution lines, so they can keep up a bit better. The town bus station is also getting rather crowded at this point. We will have to build a new one very soon, because the overspill is starting to affect the road traffic. This will be the first mistake I make with trying to place the pipes for the new heating plant. For small pipes, hiding them underground was a workable solution, but these big ones, they require too many work days and too much resources to be a workable solution. So, they will have to be overground pipes, at least until the town border. It will be a while before I fully realize this. It's such a shame. I really like this parallel setup I managed to squeeze together before the train tracks. I'll be really sad when I realize it's an unworkable solution. Anyways, the health and happiness of our citizens are starting to bounce back. We lost a couple hundred people, and I can already tell you that we will definitely have to build a memorial monument somewhere prominent to honor their sacrifice. I already downloaded one from the workshop that should be suitable. And I already have an idea where to place it, but I'll leave it as a surprise for next time. Look at that traffic. We definitely need a new bus station. Back to the pipes. I'll fast forward, so you'll see what could have been, but not sit through the agony of working on it in vain. This could have been a really neat and orderly pipe network. But the cost turned out to be prohibitive, so sadly, it was all for naught. The road cargo station finished while I was busy doing nothing productive. Let's change the delivery lines, so they stop forming that long queue and keep moving. And that should be it. From now on, all pickups and drop-offs will be done through the cargo station, speeding things up considerably. I also wanted to tell the distribution office to use it instead of going straight to the warehouse, but I'll get distracted before I can do it. We had a worker shortage in the heating plant. That bus station overload is starting to interfere with critical infrastructure. I got so distracted by it, that I completely forgot to reassign the distribution office. No big deal, there is no harm in allowing one of the drop-offs to use the warehouse itself. Especially the one that is the most infrequent. The sooner we deal with this issue, the better. This empty plot near the secret police HQ should be the perfect place for a new bus station. And all of the new service buildings are done. This will lessen the load on the old ones. Also, the health and happiness is steadily increasing. I think we dodged a bullet there. The firehouse at the oil fields is ready for service. It has power, and helicopters don't need staff to operate. Thankfully, our increased exports managed to accrue a pretty sizable amount of cash, so we can easily afford to buy a helicopter. For the best results, I prefer to use the one with the most water capacity. That should mean fewer round trips. And we are now officially airborne. If there is a fire nearby, this chopper will fly to the nearby lake, fill its towed water container, and dump it all on the fire. Very efficient, and as I said, it doesn't require staff to operate, so this whole area will be running on autopilot, only requiring power to operate. And all the roads in the construction yard are complete. We can finally tell the local distribution house to start moving fuel to the firehouse, so the helicopter can take off when needed. Since one of the delivery jobs in this DO requires quite a bit of driving, going all the way to the border, then all the way to the oil fields, I'll add one more tanker, in case one is busy doing that huge circuit, the other can still deal with shorter jobs. Now we only need to add the catenaries onto this segment, and the core of the rails around here are done. We'll still need to add a crossing, and signals, but other than that, it's finished. Oh my gosh, that is one nasty traffic jam right there. I'll have to divide the lines between the two stations. Obviously things going north towards the farms will be served by the new station, everything else will be serviced by the old one. I might even have to rebuild the old station. I mirrored the building when I placed it, and that crisscrossed the internal pathing for the buses, so they keep getting into each other's ways at the entrance. If we rebuilt it without mirroring, it might help with matters. And the penny drops in 3, 2, 1. 200 tons of gravel, 300 tons of concrete, 15,000 workdays. Yeah. This isn't going to happen anytime soon. It will have to be an overground pipe, no matter how much I want it to be buried. And we have a pretty big hill in the way, just after the rails too. I'm going to be so done with this once I'm finished. And I bet you already see the issue. Since those segments that come back up to ground level are entirely new constructions, we cannot reach them. I will eventually give up, and do the entire thing above ground. And because of this hillside, we cannot make the continuous curve that works so well with the underground pipes. I'm going to spare you the agony of sitting through my own personal hell, and fast forward through my feeble attempts to coax anything usable out of this one. I'll leave it at that for now, but of course, we will be thwarted by the segmented nature of the pipeline, so we will have to make a third stab at it really soon. We started construction on it. That low resource requirement was a bit suspicious, but I'll soon face the segmentation issue firsthand. Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions coming to bite me. The new bus station was finished. Time to reassign the relevant lines to this one. It cannot reach 4 of the most recent apartment blocks, but everything else is in range. I can live with that. We have a bit of an unemployment problem, but that's because we didn't have buses going to the new station for a while. It will level out soon. And that's the end of the currently reachable segment of the pipe. I will have to redesign the segments coming out of the heating plant itself. But once this first line is finally completed, it will serve as an attachment point to the others, and that should make building the rest a lot easier. Now that all the reassigned lines had time to get used to their new bus station, unemployment is back to 0%. People with higher education is still in sharp decline. I'll give it a bit more time, and see where things end up. But looking at the graph, we might be close to the end of the drop. Now that we have 2 bus stations, the traffic around the older one calmed down considerably. I think it's time to release the construction yard's commuter buses. For now, they will mostly deal with the firehouse, but there will be a couple people idling in the factories too. But it's less than a dozen overall, so I can allow it. Anyways, we need to start up the new heating plant. First we need to supply it with workers. I think I will give the 8-seater microbuses a try. The plant has 30 job slots available, so just to be on the safe side, I'll use 8 buses. Since I didn't mirror this station, vehicles don't get into each other's ways at the entrance. Much more efficient. Okay, we have workers in the heating plant now. Time to bring in the coal. Since we have a very convenient coal distribution line already going, I can use it to move coal to the new facility. Of course, to have it make sense, I'll have to disable waiting at the different stops, and enable line spacing. I accidentally chose raw coal ore as the thing to deliver here for 2 stops, which I will fix as soon as I realize the error in a minute or so. And the fact that the truck didn't drop off the coal was enough to make me realize that I made a small mistake while configuring the line. There. That should take care of it. That's what I like to see. I will only have to monitor coal levels in the 2 heating plants to make sure we have enough throughput to supply both, and add more dumpers to the line if the current 3 cannot keep up with the demand. Lastly, we need to supply power to the plant, after which it should be fully operational. The steel mill's transformer is the most sensible place to draw power from. I can't connect the road for now, but don't worry, the final pipe that I'll end up with will allow it to pass under it. This is where I realized that I'll have to give up on the idea of using those underground sections, and just go with regular overground pipes. The pipe is much higher this way, so we have more than enough headroom for the road. Not the prettiest construction I ever done, but it will work. Once I add the other outlets onto it, it might become less of an eyesore. I will wait until this substation is fully built, and then I will end the episode with the first puffs of smoke leaving the chimney of this heating plant. That heating pipe really tested my resolve. I keep forgetting that switching from underground to overground pipes count as separate constructions. So from now on, if I want to add another heat exchanger to the town, I will need to have the overground section built from the heating plant, and the underground section have to be built completely from the exchanger, with 2 complete sections meeting at the town border. I want to start up the construction yard as soon as possible, so we really need to finish building the rail network between the gravel pickup and drop-off points. I could also consider reallocating the internal storage space of the clothing warehouse to allow crops and chemicals to be stockpiled there, so we wouldn't need to use so many trucks to move them to the fabric factories. I can even connect one of them to the warehouse if I wanted, and only use trucks for one of them. Once it's connected to the rail network, we can use trains to move the resources there in bulk, freeing up some space on our roads. Not to mention that we can also start moving clothes around with trains too, making those 2 distribution trucks obsolete. Other than that, I will make another pass at the different level crossings around the place, and see if I can make them into overpasses, especially around the more busy areas. Anyways, I hope you liked the video. If you did, dropping a like and subscribing to the channel just might motivate me to make more. Until then, see you later.